does the Quran say like if you don't follow Islam or if you don't follow all the beliefs or teachings of Islam, does it say you should be punished?
Okay, so Islam says very clearly, Inna ad-deena 'inda Allah al-Islam. Surely the only acceptable religion or way of life is Islam, the sincere, pure submission to God. Okay? And whoever seeks any other way other than Islam, it will never be accepted of them. Never be accepted of them. That means, according to the Islamic teaching, the only acceptable ideology, way of life, religion, is the one which is sincere, pure, humble submission to the one and only God. If you submit and surrender to something else, you will never be accepted. If you worship a phone or a man or a woman or a football star, whatever, you will never be accepted of it. God is not going to accept this because He created us for a purpose. If you don't fulfill the purpose, then we'll have to meet the consequence.
So of the Muslim population, would you say a sizable amount of the Muslim population are Muslims because of their family or their upbringing?
That's most religions. That's common to most religions. People are born into a family.
Yeah, so I'd say that. So if I'm not brought up in a Islamic household, I'm not taught those values growing up, how can I be expected to? And I'm 19 years of age now. I have my own outlook on the world, and they might conflict with some.
It depends now who we're talking about. If it's you, for example, excuse me, you have the whole world at your doorstep or at your fingertips. You are constantly watching on social media, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever, right? The whole world, information-wise, is at your fingertips. That means that means if you used your intellect, you should have used and said, look, there are more than 1/4 of the world's population who believes in one God. Why? Did you ask? They believe in one God, which makes sense to me. They don't believe in 3 in 1 gods, or they don't believe in multiple gods, or they don't believe in idols. So
a lot of people do believe that.
No, I'm saying when you yourself were to ask these questions, you using your intellect will then be coming to a point where you will not have an excuse saying, oh, I didn't know, no one told me, because the information is now bombarded to you from everywhere. Look, you came to Speaker's Corner, guess what happened? You came to Speaker's Corner, information came to you. Yeah. You didn't come to the information came to you from us. Information has always been passed on to us, whether we've been bombarded with information passively or actively.
Okay,
always.
I understand what you're saying.
But if it was a 90-year-old woman or a man in a home who have no information because she or he doesn't look into the internet or have access to a library, doesn't have a copy of the Quran and so on, it's totally different. Because how much of the information did they have access to? You can only be judged, right, with the information that you've been accessible to yourself. Like we said about the intellect is also there. So if that individual using the intellect realize I can't worship a tree or a monkey or an elephant or a human being, or God is a trinity, whatever, then you already see that these people in the day of judgment, they'll be in a positive light. Why? Because they are coming closer to the understanding of who God is. That's how much the intellect can arrive to. Your intellect cannot come to the conclusion about that God is this, everything. There's a limitation of intellect. There's a role that intellect can play, but it cannot answer all your questions. Yeah? But intellect can then also, at the same time, reject many of these concepts about God. Yeah? So it might not affirm all of them, but it can reject a lot of those false concepts of God. That's where then when you look at the revelation will confirm your intellectual thinking, intellectual guidance, and then say, yep, I accept, I submit, I surrender. Because you are the only one worthy of worship, no one else. That's why the process of accepting Islam in our tradition, do you know what it is? The first one is of negation. You have to negate nothing worthy of worship. La ilaha. Unconditional, that's it. There's nothing worthy of worship. So imagine everything, like nothing. Man, woman, tree, flag, nation, pop star, football star, celebrities, nothing worthy of worship. And then you affirm, but the one and only true God. That's the process of accepting Islam. So there is this role where intellect and the guidance plays hand in hand. No reason, no wonder God didn't just leave with our intellect only. He sent prophets and messengers and gave them guidance too in the form of scriptures.
Okay, but the thing is, you're saying that you're basically saying that everyone's intellect, if they're exposed to the teachings of the Quran, everyone's intellect should automatically think that's
I didn't say everyone. I said the sound intellect. Sound.
Sound intellect. Or so if I consider myself someone who has sound intellect, my intellect should automatically tell me that this.
You can ask yourself.
My point is this: you were brought up, or I don't know if a lot of the Muslims on this earth today were brought up in a Muslim family, they were brought up believing. Yeah, being taught those values their whole life. I've been brought up maybe being taught different values my whole life. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm not individual with sound intellect, but my sound intellect might still tell me that everything in the Quran is not correct and is not something I should follow. So how do you...
Just to expand on this, say someone who worships an idol and says, look, I use my intellect all the time. That's why I got a good job, I got a good friend or a husband or a wife, and I have all this properties and money and successful. They will say I'm using the intellect. But using the intellect soundly in the matters of the reality, in the matters of your belief about the Creator and so on, have they been using it? This is what we demonstrate here, that that's not the case. Yeah? If someone is really sincere, truth-loving, and uses the intellect properly, even though they worship an idol, after discussion and understanding and reflection, they will say, yeah, it makes sense. Why they will say that? Because that's the sign of the sound intellect. You will see many people, they will say, yes, it makes sense not to worship an idol, but this is my religious tradition. Or I try to focus on it because I can't imagine God in any other way, so I have to concentrate on something. It's a focus point. So they're trying to justify it. But if you really delve into it, any belief system which is not in congruence or in conformity or in harmony with the true belief system, your intellect will reject it. Polytheism, tritheism.
There's so many people many people that believe so many other things then, isn't
So you're basically saying, why is our truth more truthful than someone else's?
Because
I mean, what proves us more than everyone else? Why?
Basically, I'm like, I don't understand the idea that of someone. So what if I don't have sound intellect? What if I'm someone that's if under your belief?
Very good question. Very good question. Very good question. Very good question. So if your intellect is somehow incapacitated, meaning you don't have the ability.
So are you basically saying everyone?
No. You have to hear me out. All right. Either someone is totally unable to use their intellect. There are many people like that. Okay? It could be a medical condition, for example. If you're unable to, then you are not accountable. If you're totally insane, clearly you cannot use your reason whatsoever, you are not accountable. There are many people in the Islamic tradition understanding of things that the pen has been lifted. They cannot be accountable because they are not able to use their reason and intellect. But the difference is, if you have a person who has the ability but does not use it, they will be questioned on why did you not use it? Did they not come to you? And they will say, yeah, but we didn't use our intellect. Then they will have no excuse. Because if you had the ability to use your reason and you do not use it, you will be held accountable for that. Because if you had used it, you would not have believed in such and such and ended up in such and such worse destination. That is the Quranic teaching. If you have the ability and you haven't used it, then you are accountable for it. Because God didn't give you a brain just to find who's the best beautiful girlfriend or a wife, and that's it. There is a higher purpose of our mind, to find out the reason why here we are in this cosmos. Because I may not have been here in this reality. There are millions and billions of people. Why me as well? Does it matter if I didn't exist? Nothing will change if I didn't exist. But why am I independently existing? Because I am important in God's creation. I have a reason why I'm here. That means I need to find out why am I here, where I came from and where am I going. If I didn't use my intellect for doing this, then I cannot have an excuse in the day of judgment saying, well, I was too busy with my studies and with my work, with my pastime, with my football, with my soap operas, whatever. It would not be an acceptable excuse.
Okay, but the thing is, so if I'm brought up with my father is teaching me this is the way to live your life, this is how people live, and that's based on Christianity, or that's based on nothing, that's just based on his experiences in the world. And then at the age of 30 years old or so, or at my age, someone shows me a Quran and that conflicts. What's in the Quran is conflict with what I'm taught. How am I to if my intellect is formed by my upbringing and formed by what I've been taught my whole life, and that's what I see as logic. How can I then read the Quran suddenly
it's not a sudden process.
This is right. This is right.
Yeah.
And
so it's not a sudden process. That's why the Quran tells us the importance of from the changing of societies and understanding of how people learn and educate themselves. Yeah. So Islam has a very much importance on education from the very young, where people are not conditioned to be totally brainwashed and that's it, you can't think. It makes people critical thinkers. And that's why if you look at Islamic tradition in the past, it generated generations of critical thinkers, scientists, social scientists, philosophers, biologists, astronomers, and they contributed to the world knowledge and civilization and technology. I mean, many of the stars' names are given by Islamic civilization astronomers. Why so? Because they didn't just stop there. They used their mind and looked into horizons and look at the world that God has created. They did not occupy themselves with this small life and let me just go to work and come back to work and Saturday and Sunday just drink myself off and then wake up on Monday and then Monday evening a little bit okay, Tuesday much better, and Friday, yeah, and like a cycle of slavery and servitude to this machinery of economics. No. Islam encourages people to develop, to grow, to perfect, to uplift their character. That's why one of the reasons the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet who brought this Quran, he said he was raised لِأُتِمِّمَ مَكَارِمُ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He was raised to perfect the nobility of character. You see? So you have a noble character. You're not someone born in debt, born doomed to die because someone else did something, but you are then to carry on developing, progressing, and improving yourself. And God tells us about these things that we are saying so common between all the religions, that He says He has guided us and showed us the two ways. إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. God says we have shown them, guided them in the two ways, whether they're grateful or ungrateful. It doesn't matter. He's given them two ways. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful are those who purifies it. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. The ones who are in loss are the ones who obviously has wronged it, totally oppressed it, totally damaged it, and so on. So we have this inbuilt understanding of good and bad already. So your parents,
you believe each person has something inside them that will tell them.
That's how we are created in our makeup. We are created to understand the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, and God shows additional guidance in the form of maybe in your sleep, maybe in your wakeful state, and then prophets and messengers comes with books and so on to guide you into this total infallible, what we call decisive guidance. Scripture will be the decisive matter. So when the guidance comes to us, we should accept it. That's what the Quran wants us.